When I
Welcome back inside the Now Morning Show. We continue our conversations about the budget for fiscal 2025-2026. This morning we have Youth Parliamentarian Kriss Hosein joining us on set to have some conversations. Good morning, Kriss.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. How are you all doing?
Tired, but we're here. How are you doing?
I'm okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay for now.
What are you looking forward to today? Today we're reading the budget from 1:30 p.m. Everybody's going to be paying close attention. You as a youth parliamentarian, what are some of the things that you want to perk up for to make sure and pay attention to?
Well, the messaging, I feel as though we have been in a space, budget after budget, where we have heard a conversation of tighten your belt.
Right.
And so I'm really looking forward to some sort of hope. Interestingly, we have a new government that would have been elected into office, April 28th being the past election date. And so I would be able to tell, based on the allocations, the priorities, what type of economy we could look forward to in the next 5 years. Of course, it is important to note that this new government would have sat in opposition for 10 years. And so they would have a track record of number of suggestions and recommendations. So now being on the other side of the house.
Time to walk the talk.
Time to walk the talk.
I didn't think about it from that perspective, but you're very, very correct, because they have had the chance to sit and criticize all the budgets of the last 10 years, and they can say now, all right, it's our turn, let's make sure. And I saw the finance minister saying something similar just this weekend, where he was basically saying that, we've had a chance to rehearse this, and now is our turn to show what we can do where the budget is concerned. As a young person, you mentioned the hope just now. You're looking forward to some sort of hope, right? But we've been hearing from all sides, from the previous government, from this government, how bad things are in terms of our financial status as a country. Where does that hope come from?
Well, the hope comes from, again, we just came out of an election season, and so there would have been political offerings, a number of campaign promises. And so it is incumbent on any government that would have gotten this mandate, how are you going to execute those platform promises into public policy? And so the expectation that people may hold, I don't think it's a little crazy. I think that you would have set some limit to the expectation that we hold right now. But in terms of a youth perspective, I know that when we speak about budget, we get into this space of, well, what you're looking for is only the education sector or the Ministry of Sport and Youth. But almost every ministry you would find young persons having an interest in. So a youth perspective is just a perspective from a younger age group, but it's going to be across the entire budget.
So as you mentioned that, particularly from a youth perspective, what would you say right now is perhaps the top tier of urgent youth priority that the government should address?
So with any financial planning, you have the opportunity to set the outcome for the country, and in terms of young people, you have to set the outcome of what you want these young persons to look like, what you want them to sound like, what you want them to be interested in. And so it is no secret that we have somewhat socialized and maybe glamorized a certain area in, I don't want to say music, but sometimes our culture, into violence.
Right.
And so how are we going to improve on that and course correct that? And so in the previous budgets, there were a number of conversations speaking about conflict management, conflict resolution, more safety officers into the schools. So my little issue that I may have, or suggestion that I may give to this government, is that you have the opportunity now to execute that through the budget, but also we should be looking at reforming the curriculum, because it cannot be that we have this curriculum that existed since my parents' days, and the world is evolving, the world is changing. We are in a new digital era. We're no longer in a analog era. So how are you going to transcend younger persons into the new age and preparing us for the new jobs?
Tell me, what does that look like? Because you're speaking something that I think definitely falls under the remit of the Ministry of Public Administration and AI, right? What does that look like in terms of their fiscal allocation? What sort of investments would you like to see made into that ministry?
Well, we have limited resources right now, right? But in terms of the AI aspect, well, one thing that I don't think would cost too much of money, but we need regulations. So parliamentarians, they are legislators, they make law. And so they also have the opportunity to bring some sort of legislative agenda to the House. Hopefully the opposition would they'd get the support. Of course, you have to be convincing, and perhaps maybe get the support from the independent bench in the Senate. Once it's good legislation, I anticipate a good, healthy debate. But that's me being wishful. But also AI. Also, yes, you notice that as being wishful, right?
I hear
so
completely.
let me just plug this one time. I expect my parliamentarians to be professional, and we expect a professional, healthy debate. Young people are looking on. You're an example, right? So just needed to plug that. But AI, artificial intelligence, consumes a lot of energy.
Yes.
We're talking about servers. We're talking about ChatGPT here.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a number of servers. And so the other part of the question in AI is, well, where are we getting all this energy from? Right? Because we know that we have relied on the fossil fuels for many, many, many years. And the conversation is happening about dragon gas. And though we may have a little go-ahead light, to have a conversation, right? The reality is that dragon gas will take a number of years. That is even if the conversation goes well. It will take 10 years, which I will be middle-aged when should that happen, right?
We bring it back to talk about it from an adult perspective.
Right? Yeah, yes. Right? So what I'm looking forward for is what's new. What is new in the budget? Over 50% of the budget we spend on salaries, subsidies, wages,
Recurrent
transfers.
expenses. Yeah.
So what's new? What are the new ways in which we're going to export? We have a foreign exchange issue within the country. So we need to ramp up. How are we going to export? We heard the Minister of Agriculture, the new Minister of Agriculture, I think he said something to the effect of there would be no national security if there isn't food security. And I agree with him. Now, though we are trying to stimulate the agriculture sector, especially the farmers, we need to be looking at the secondary and tertiary aspect of agriculture. Because it cannot just be that, for example, peppers. It can't just be that we have one man planting the pepper and the next one selling peppers. When we're going to become innovative and creative? Is it pepper sprays? What we exporting? Pepper sauce? So we need to get into that aspect of being a bit more thinking, more entrepreneurial.
I mean, but we have things like Export TT that organize the packaging of and we have the manufacturing plants down in Maruga and all that, where people can come together and package and everything and be able to say, right, we're going to export this product. So
and we did see growth, huh?
Exactly. So is it that we need to see more investment into that so we can get more growth?
We need to see more investment, especially with the manufacturing sector. I think we need to see more investment, especially also in agriculture. I think it accounts for less than 1% of the GDP.
Yeah.
So when, a lot of people think, oh, well, we're going to just... So we're no longer interested in fossil fuels because it's not looking too good right now, right?
It's still 30 to 40% of our GDP.
But agriculture is the answer. Well, yes, it could be.
Right.
It could be. So I'm really looking forward. Yes, budget is figures, and you hear, oh, well, this amount of billion to this ministry and this amount of billion to that ministry. What I want to know is the policy that's going to drive the economic growth. And I think that is where I'm looking forward to in the budget. Not necessarily just today. I'm looking forward to the line ministers.
Now, as you mentioned, policy. If you had to draft one policy, right, to ensure youth participation on a national level, what would it be?
Well, I think right now, you're asking me policy. I think young people, you have to engage us in a manner, the modality of communication, in a manner in which we are interested in. So there's once upon a time where the newspaper was, the thing, right? And now it is social media.
Right.
And I feel as though we are engaged along tokenistic ways. And so you have us involved in the process just to say you have us involved in the process. But if you listen with intent to the young messengers carrying the party's messages, it's basically the same message but in a younger body. And I think we want genuine youth interests. So I don't know if I would suggest really a policy per se, but I think I would suggest a bit more transparency and honesty.
So how do we get there?
I think we need more younger persons involved first and foremost. But we also need, when those persons get into those spaces, that they do not forget who they are supposed to represent. It's very easy to forget, Even the big boys now,
I mean, but you yourself as a youth parliamentarian, I mean, how do you find that balance? Because even when you get into that situation, I'm sure it's easy for you to say, well, I hear now, this is what I wanted. Even though there's not a big walk, it's not a big chair, but you could still sit and say, well, I've achieved this.
Well, to me, I didn't look at it as an achievement in that way. I looked at it as another space I get to advance a message.
Right.
And so that is why I did Youth Parliament in 2018, and in 2025, I'm still here being interviewed on the budget. So it's really based on your intent, and if I can give you a little history from way back as I was 15 or 16 years, I was always interested in advocacy and public advocacy. So it's really your intention. National development is going to take all of us and not some of us.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. I think it's an all-hands-on-deck approach, and we need to find the way forward. But, of course, the budget, like you mentioned before, is about setting up the precedent for what is about to happen economically, right? What we want to see going forward. And you mentioned, when they focus on big numbers on certain ministries, as the case may be, for me, the important part is how we break it down afterwards. Is there anything in particular you want to see come out of various ministries? You mentioned that youth are interested, of course, in
almost
everything. Everything, right? What sort of policy would you like to see come out of the budget that we can say, going forward, this will have a positive impact on society and the youth by extension?
Well, I think AI, I want to hear more about AI. I know, yes, we have the AI in terms of namesake in the Ministry of Public Admin and AI, but we need to get more out of that. So I think via the budget, that would be a good way for us to look at those things.
You mean in terms of what they're doing?
What they're doing, or what they plan to do.
Okay.
And also M&E, monitoring and evaluation. One of the things that I have always said budget after budget from a youth perspective was, how are we going to know that we have achieved a success? Because there ought to be a small, medium and long-term plan.
Right.
So in the interim, until we get to the long term, how are we going to know as a country that in this particular area we're doing well?
Right.
We could always do better. And so I think that process, indicators, financial indicators should be there. Hopefully the new Minister of Finance can let us know those things.
Definitely. So as we speak about, of course, the budget and the youth perspective particularly, I think one of the biggest questions that we do need to ask, especially going back to what you would have referenced with the youth being interested, is the involvement. Do you see, from your experience, of course, and from your perspective, that we have that representation of the youth voices in the budget, particularly the youth voices on the ground who are living it day to day?
Well, I don't know what level of consultation would have been done by this present administration to engage young people. But what I will say is there are many groups that you can engage with. There's the Trinidad Youth Council, there are student guilds, there you can go out into the high schools as well. So there are many areas in which, if you want to hear from us, you can engage us.
But Kriss, let's be real about it, right? How much youths care?
That's a good question, but I wouldn't even just say it's how many youths care. I would say how many non-youths care, because if you look at the voter turnout for an election, many people don't care, right?
Yeah.
So,
I think many people made a statement by not coming out. But when we in my daily life, when I engage young people in terms of, what's going on from a political perspective, all they know is the headline bacchanal that's happening. And we don't often look at the details of what is going on and where the money is going, how the money is being allocated, how the policies are being affected, etc., etc. Is that something that you and your peers have as regular conversation?
that is something, well, my peers and I, we have spoken about it. But you're right in that the message that is that really goes viral for us would be the bacchanal.
Yeah.
If you look at last Friday, I think it would have gone viral on social media, the conduct of some of the parliamentarians. But really, the essence of the debate was missed, that JPs now are going to be able to grant, they can...
Warrants.
Yeah. And so, how many persons really understood that is really what they debated? You know, I think what persons got was some sort of little commerce, right?
Yeah.
But it really wasn't supposed, I don't think that's what the parliament's supposed to be, you know? So when you have adults behaving like that, what will really leave for the rest of us to, you know, be interested in?
Now, in light of that, any recommendations? In light of that, what recommendations would you have sitting down as a previous youth parliamentarian watching what takes place in Parliament, especially when it comes to, I dare say, setting an example for the younger generation?
Well, I don't know if sometimes we're progressing or regressing with the behavior, but the advice I would give to any aspiring political actor or the ones that sit there, just do your job, right? Theater aside, let's get on with the work of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. The reality is we have a crippling economy. We have a number of persons that would have been unemployed before the election, after the election. And so this is our job. At the end of the day, this is our job. So just do your job.
And that's fair. Just do your job. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Kriss. One of the things that kind of stood out to me when you spoke earlier about the campaign promises, things that were made, promises that were made on the campaign, and we have the chance now to turn some of those into policy, to turn some of those into actual action. So we look forward to the budget this afternoon to see how that is going to play out. Is there any of the campaign promises that you remember that you want to see put into action?
But there are many. We would have heard about 10% for the unions, and so it's
for public servants,
well,
back pay.
Back pay. So it's going to be interesting to see how that is converted into a policy given the limited resources we have.
Right.
Yes, laptops for all. We welcome any sort of digital device. We are in that era. But what is the infrastructure for it? So it's not just that I give you this as a gift, go on and learn to use it on your own. It must come with something that can stimulate younger persons. I think the UNC also discussed cannabis. So it's going to be interesting to hear that aspect in the budget. They would have also and one more thing that I wanted to plug would have been the orange economy. Right? So the reality is that we as Trinbagonians, quite recently I did some traveling, right? And I wouldn't mention where I traveled, so you could go on my social media and check it out. But, right? But what I will say is that we have a very identifiable culture and context that is Trinbagonian. So how do we package this brand, sell it on the market, and export it? You know, we want that foreign exchange. In Carnival, we tell the world what it looks like, what it sounds like, sometimes what it tastes like with our food. And so that is an area in which I think we have great potential in. Tobago, we're sitting down on a secret with Tobago as well. So I am really looking forward to seeing what is new. I don't want to hear this. Sometimes the budget becomes stale. The same old, well, we paying this, we paying that, we paying X, and then the last 15 minutes as well, where the real budget is, So I really want to hear something that is going to be new and really giving us hope and allowing us to have new revenue incomes.
I'm not gonna lie, Kriss, you sound like a young man dreaming, because I can tell you as an adult, the first thing in my budget is always the recurring expenses. So I understand where you're coming from, but we also look forward with hope as well. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Enjoy the rest of your day. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Kriss Hosein, youth parliamentarian, a former youth parliamentarian, still youth, definitely discussing some of the plans or hopes for the budget 2025-2026 fiscal year. We take a quick break. When we come back, we have your birthday shout. Stick around.